Investor Intelligence provides general information only. You should consider seeking independent advice to see how this information relates to your unique circumstances. Please refer to the terms and conditions available at investorintelligence.com.au for more.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, brought to you by the team at the Property Mentors. It's your weekly podcast for all things investment and hosted by me, Phoebe Sikowski-Wallace. So as you would have heard in previous episodes, and something we will continue to say on this podcast, is that the team of experts that you surround yourself with can essentially make or break your investment success. Now, beyond them, you may also have other important opinions and advice coming at you from other people in your life, such as family and friends, and that is completely understandable. But today we wanted to talk about the importance of where you're taking your information from, making sure that you undertake your own due diligence and recognise times when you might need to get a second opinion. So I am joined today by two members of the Property Mentors mentor team. First, I have mentor team director Herman Benade. Welcome, Herman.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I have mentor team leader Malika Kingwell. Welcome, Malika.
Thanks for having me again, Phoebe.
Of course. So, Malika, I'll start with you. Would you say that one of the first activities that you undertake with your new members is navigating which voices and opinions that they should be listening to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you're initially coming on board to become a member here, and we're going to help you, navigate your property journey. One of the biggest things is that we ensure that all of our members have is the right team, right? Around surrounding them, which we've spoken about before. So not only your mentor, but your mortgage broker, the right accountant, things like that. We all have in our lives friends and family and uncles and aunties who may have bought one or two investment properties, or they've said that they've invested and things like that. But yes, you trust them because they're your family and you love them, but are they really going to be the right people to give you the right advice? Because their job is probably not that, right? They're probably very skilled in their profession that they are, which could be, a nurse, a doctor, something like that. They're not people that actually invest in property for a living, and that's what they do day in, day out. Would you agree with that, Herman? Do you have anything you'd want to sort of add to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think most of the members that we do speak to get their advice from someone, whether it's a mentor, family member, accountant, all of that. I think you just want to be really sure that those people know what they're doing before you take advice from them. Yeah. So do your research and then see, hey, is that where I want to end up in my life?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Do you find it depends who needs more of this advice? Like, does it change with, say, like age or relationship status, for example?
100%.
100%.
We tend our younger, so people in their early 20s, they tend to rely quite heavily on advice from family members.
Sure.
And our question is always, what has your family member done? Mm-hmm. Have they got a successful property portfolio? Do they have a solid exit plan? How are they going to retire? Mm-hmm. If all of those things stack up and it makes sense, then sure, take your advice from them. But if your parents own one property and you want to build a portfolio of 5 or 6, they're not going to be able to show you how to get there.
Yeah.
So age definitely plays a big.
I find that like a lot of people, young professionals, kind of in their late 20s through to their mid 40s, they're definitely the ones that are more open and understand. They know the facts that they need a team of professionals in that exact area of expertise that they're looking to get that support with to help them reach the success that they want to reach. And I think that happens because as you get older and you gain more life experience, you've kind of hit that point in your life where maybe you have taken a step away from family members because you've sort of adulting, as to say, which is what I'm trying to do right now. And you realise that yes, your family's opinions and thoughts are always important and they're valid because they're coming from a caring place. but are they actually coming from a place of expertise, knowing the facts that this is going to actually help you as an individual achieve what you want to achieve, right? I think your family's advice is from a place of love. Beautiful. When we need that, we all need that, but that's not a place of expertise.
For sure. So, Herman, parents can often have a really strong opinion on what their children are doing. Very understandable. And we've discussed this in previous episodes, how something like using the bank of mum and dad can impact the decisions that someone's making as well. How important would you say is it for people to identify experts when seeking investment advice?
Well, it's extremely important. It's the difference between success and failure in most of the cases. Not only if you're getting your advice from someone that's not qualified to give you that advice, you can end up in hot water, like you get the wrong advice from a broker and you go and sign a contract for a property that's more than what you can borrow. That there's lots of legal ramifications for that. This is going to be the biggest asset that you're going to buy in your life. So I think your advice shouldn't come from one particular person or one particular group of people. It should come from a whole team. So I would also say, talking to the question you asked about age, Phoebe, if you're relying on your parents for a deposit, like the bank of mum and dad, then you can't just ignore their advice, right? You can't just go, I'll take your money, but I'm not going to listen to anything that you say, right? So my advice to people in situations like that where they want to kind of do their own thing, but their parents say this is what you need to do, go and educate yourself, properly understand what the property or property investing is about so you can educate other people around you, right? So just saying you want to do something and flipping it on its head and saying I want to do this because it works for me in this kind of way, that might be a way to get mum and dad on your side to do the things that you might know is best for you. So advice, doesn't matter where it comes from, it's good, providing that you get it from more than one source, right? So you're not relying on one particular person's opinion on a whole subject of things, right?
And we recently did an episode talking about what to consider if you are to rely on the bank of mum and dad. So definitely go and check that one out if you want some more information on that. But I'll open this next question to both of you. What are some of the possible impacts of having competing advice coming at you from all angles? So, for example, say your parents who, as you said before, Malika, obviously have your best interest at heart. They just want the best for you. But say your mortgage broker who has years of experience in the industry, if they just don't see eye to eye, like what happens there?
Unless your parents are mortgage brokers, listen to the mortgage broker.
Yeah.
Yes.
There can be a huge impact, a massive impact. It's like, that's like saying, you're going to want to go, I want to go get heart surgery, but I'm not seeking the heart surgery from a heart surgeon that does it every day and is fully qualified and trained in that. That's the severity of what will happen if you're not taking, obviously it's not life and death, but in a sense of, like Herman mentioned earlier, this is the biggest asset you will ever purchase. So having a lot of advice coming from you for every angle, but if you're going with the one that's maybe not the expert, then you could potentially be making decisions that are detrimental to your future that wouldn't be correct for yourself.
So it's okay to take on all advice from all angles, but it's then up to you to really consider which one is best for you and which one's the best to follow. Yeah,
no one can ever force you as to which advice you should take and what decision you want to make with that advice. When you're deciding on what advice you want to take, you need to be smart about that. You have to be smart about that. You do not become, like Herman said again earlier, you do not become successful without a team around you. And it's like businesses. Anyone out there that owns their own business, do you think they grew their business completely solo without any advice and guidance and mentoring? No. Right? So it's the exact same. Like you just need to be smart about the advice that you're listening to.
Yeah, I would say conflicting information is sometimes a good thing because it means, someone who's giving you advice is incorrect, essentially. If you get two completely different opinions, someone's right, someone's wrong, right? If you had the education, which is obviously what we focus on here, if you had the education and you actually knew everything that there is to property investment, you'll be able to identify who's giving you realistic advice and who's basically just has an opinion, if you want to put it like that. So I would just urge people, if you are getting advice from multiple different people, try to stay away from anyone trying to do a get-rich-quick scheme type environment. Anyone that's telling you you're all of a sudden going to retire in 5 years because you've invested in property, that's not true, right? So we're pretty clear about it here. Slow, steady, that's what we do here. So I guess that's saying if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is too good to be true.
Yeah.
That's where you need to get your advice from. The second thing is people can give you advice, but it's your responsibility to identify whether that advice should be taken on board. So if it's someone telling you where you should buy property, what does their portfolio look like? If it's someone telling you what you should do for your loan structures and stuff like that, then where's the expertise? Where's the things that's backing up? If I go and see a psychologist, I want to know that that person's qualified to speak to that specific thing, right? If I go and see a doctor, a heart doctor, I want to see the qualification. That's why they hang them up in their surgeries, right? Because it's physically there in front of you. Why would you not do that when you're looking at investing in property, right? Because one little bad bit of advice, let's say a broker, let's use a broker for an example, they give you a borrowing capacity for $600,000. You then come to us and you say, I've got a borrowing capacity for $600K, I've got $60K in savings, go and find me a property, right? We go through education, we find you a property. We don't ask for a second opinion, and we put you in an unconditional contract off the plan, settling in a year's time from now. If that broker did not do their job right and you didn't get a second opinion on what's happening there, or you're not very confident in that person's skills, you're in an unconditional contract which the developer will force you to settle on. I'm not talking thousands of dollars, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars that you don't have because you've just saved the last 2-3 years for a $60K deposit, right? So the world of pain you'll be in off the back of that, right? When you think about it, you could have had a 15-minute conversation with a second mortgage broker to get a second opinion, and you would have avoided that. So that's what we do here at TPM. The reason why we build the team around you is we find the property, we've given you the education, you make the decision at the end of the day. You're not taking our word for it that it's a good property. But then for a lack of a better word, we simply rinse you through your team to make sure that all the risk that can be removed in investment is removed. So that doesn't mean we go to the broker and talk about contract stuff, right? Because that's not the expertise. It doesn't mean we go to the conveyancer and ask how the loan should be structured. Each person specializes in that one little thing that they do, and that's all they do, day in, day out, right? Yeah. So that's how you get a proper network around you, right? So if you've got someone that you really look up to, because they've got a really big portfolio, and they start giving you advice around that, just ask yourself, hey, am I in a similar position to this person, right? Yeah. If you're on 70K and that person's on 250, you're not going to be able to do the same thing. Yeah. So is that the right advice for you? Might be good advice, but not necessarily the right advice for you.
It's definitely understandable in many situations where, say, you don't have the experts around you just yet. So it's kind of easy to latch on to someone who may have done something of the sort. So say your parents bought their own house. That's great. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily make them the experts. And I understand that it's easy to latch on to that because that's the closest thing you know to it, especially before you have those experts. But it does sound like the further you get into your investment journey, the sources of advice almost change from being fairly emotional and personal to being quite educational and professional if you do it right.
I think it should have a mixture between the two, right? Investment should fit in with your life, not the other way around, right? So if you've got someone that fully understands your situation and they can then guide you to the right professionals to give you advice, there's a lot more value in that. So say you're on an average salary, right? You've bought one house, you've got one investment property, right? And I sent you to KPMG, for instance, to go and get financial advice, right? Who gives financial advice to millionaires and things like that? Is their advice incorrect? No, they're correct for that specific type of person, right? So you need to do the same for your situation. If you have got 5 years before retirement, our advice are going to be very different to if you've got 20 years before retirement. So advice needs to be specific to your situation. The same way where if your parents only own the house that they live in and you want to own 5 homes, why would you take advice from someone that hasn't done what you're trying to achieve? So I think, yes, let it all come in, but figure out what actually suits you rather than take everything on board.
Touching on what Herman just said then, and if you've listened to any of our other podcasts before, so of course you need to make educated decisions, and there is going to be a bit of emotion in there, but it's understanding that the emotional decision you're making, it has to be towards you and your future goals, right? That's why we set those goals at the beginning. So why would you take advice from different angles if it's not going to help you achieve those longer term goals, right? So it's making sure that emotion is still there for sure, but the emotion's in the right place.
Can I just add one more thing, Malika? It's also worth noting that some people can't give you some advice, right? So we are in a very regulated country, right? In terms of who can give you advice about what, right? We can't give you accounting advice. We can't give you broking advice. We can't give you financial planning advice, right? You have to be licensed to give that advice, right? So if your broker is suggesting property to you, which we hear more often than not, where brokers do the finance and then they go and put you in property, right? You need to have some questions about that. Yeah. Because that person, they are writing loans day in, day out. Where are they getting time to go and source property? Right? Which means they've probably done a deal with a developer who wants their stock flogged. And we hear it time and time again, like people that have been referred properties by their brokers. And I would say 90% of the time, those properties have not worked out, like from a capital growth perspective.
So kind of going off that then, once you have decided to engage experts for advice, is all professional advice the same?
No. Quite simply, no. We find it more often than not. The biggest problem we've got is typically with brokers, right? Because they play such an integral part to both the pre-property selection process, so us knowing what kind of price point we're going in, and then they play just probably a bigger part at the settlement stage where they need to go and get valuations done. And you want to make sure that from an advice perspective, I think listen to what your brokers say to you, right? But when it comes to the settlement period, we've recently had a situation, right, where the broker has completely messed up, right, because they just essentially... Sorry
to interrupt there. A mortgage broker... They get their money the moment the loan comes in, right? So you will find mortgage brokers out there that want to get it done quick, snap, fast, right? And they're not actually trying to think about the best solution for the client. They have not got their client's best interests at heart. And that's going to be a problem, because then you're going to find yourself in situations where your broker might go out and get a valuation, right? You always need to get a valuation done on a property or the land, whatever it is you're purchasing, and they'll just simply do a desktop valuation.
What does that look like, just for someone who hasn't heard that term before?
You yourself, Phoebe, could go online and go on realestate.com essentially and type in 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom property in Moorabbin. See what's come up in terms of, cool, there might be a few 5 beds on there might be a couple of 2 beds, maybe a unit. They're all at completely different prices, different ages. Some are new, some are old, some are like complete full renovations. You don't see or feel that property and you go, yep, cool. All right, well, this piece of paper that tells me this is a 4-bed, 2-bath townhome, for example, is worth X amount.
Right.
How?
I just want to, for people that haven't gone through this process, what this means to you as the client, if your broker goes and does this, the valuation is likely to come in lower than the contract price. That means you have to fork out 20, 30, whatever the gap is at settlement. If you're in an unconditional contract that doesn't have a subject to finance clause, that is money that you are going to have to come up with, right? Now, Malika, this is one of your clients, so what situation did that leave your client in? Like, if she had the right advice, what would be a situation if she didn't have the right advice?
Well, unfortunately, it was actually 2 clients. So one client with their desktop valuation, without plans included for the actual property that was being built on this land, is now paying more money than she should have been, that she should be doing. That's detrimental to her future investment progress, right? That's detrimental to her future plans. Like, she doesn't have that cash anymore to do that. So it actually really not just frustrates me, but actually really upsets me, because I care so much about my members and I've become extremely invested in them and what they're wanting to do and their future. That's why I'm a mentor. That's why I do what I do. I love it. So when this actually happens, I feel sick to my stomach, because someone has not looked after that person in the way that they should have done. And that's not okay.
Right.
Another situation where a similar, again, desktop valuation, did not send someone to physically go see this property, this opportunity. Long story short, the valuation came in under contract price, which essentially what that means is that particular investor has lost out on an incredible opportunity. And not only has that investor lost out on an incredible opportunity, the emotional readiness with that investor is completely plummeted.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's really put that investor off tracks.
Sure.
I just want to say, we pride ourselves on the properties that we select. We do a hell of a lot of research that goes into any property selection. At the end of the day, if you are a member of ours, the decision is all yours. But this is the extreme of what not to do, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's other ways where if your broker isn't the right person to be getting advice from, it could stop you from getting that third or fourth property. If you go and speak to them and you say, hey, my plan is to buy 4 properties throughout my life because I need that for my passive income, and they would just want to get the deal over the line, they're going to go to the easiest lender first, and then go to the hardest afterwards, right? The brokers we work with flip it on its head, right? Because they know if we go for the easiest first, getting that 4th or 5th property is going to become next to impossible, because the restrictions around lending and stuff with these other lenders become more tight, right? So the logic is that you do it the other way around. You go with the hardest lenders first and you
work your way back.
Make sure that goes through, and then you get that 3rd, 4th property, you get to that passive income, but question everything. That's my thing. If someone tells you they're an expert at something, question them. Do your own research. Go and figure out what questions to ask. Ask for testimonials. Do all of those kind of things if someone hasn't referred that person directly to you.
Well, it goes back onto what we were talking about right at the beginning when you were asking us, when does it come to a time where you listen to the opinions of family, friends, that kind of side of your network, or more professional expertise? Because yes, you might have a second uncle twice removed in your family that's a broker. That might be the case. That in fact, that's going to happen. Like, you're probably going to have someone, like, more often than not, like, it's your dog's, cat's, uncle's, auntie's fish is a broker, right? It's like, it literally will get to that point. So yeah, of course, like, that person has your best interest at heart. But when does it come to a point where that person is trying to help you through love?
Yeah, it sounds like just taking that 15 minutes or so, however long it takes, a very short amount of time in the scheme of things to just get that second opinion.
100%.
Yeah. Ask yourself, any person that's giving you advice, how are they getting paid?
Yeah.
Right? And you'll have a very quick understanding
Actually, very true.
of what their intentions are. Right?
Okay.
We don't go to work for fun, but everyone at this table would be happy to be sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere where it's sunny, not miserable like it's here in Melbourne. But we go to work to get paid. For us, for instance, we want you to buy 3-4 properties through us, right? So if we don't perform on the 1st, 2nd property, we stop that 3rd, 4th property from ever happening.
Yeah.
If the capital growth's not there, if the yield's not there, if we've put you in touch with the wrong broker and they've messed up that, we don't get our repeat business. Simple as that.
Yeah.
100%. So how should you go about getting this second opinion on something as important as this, given, as I mentioned before, it can mean the difference between a successful investment or missing out, essentially?
I think emotion, when we're talking about purchases worth $500,000, right? if you can't remove emotion from that situation, if you're afraid to upset your uncle because you want to use a different broker, you should not be investing yet. We would tell you, and your emotional readiness is not close to where it needs to be, because the more emotion you can remove from your investment, the better that investment is going to perform.
I guess the most important person in the world is you. Yes, you look after other people. You always will. And you're going to always care and be kind to other people. But really, essentially, everyone is there to make sure that they're okay. So why would you not go and seek a second opinion for you?
I think a call with a broker is going to take you 10 minutes, right? Is 1 hour to call 5 brokers, right? Too much to get the right advice to have a smooth process when it comes to settlement.
For your future.
Not really, right? Or you come to companies like us where we personally use our accountants that we refer to. We personally use the broker to get our own finances, right? We have seen them provide successful outcomes to hundreds of members of ours, right? Time and time again.
And you want to know that expert actually specialises in what you are after as well. So guys, to wrap up, this has been a really great chat today, but if someone is looking into an investment opportunity at the moment and the advice that they're receiving is feeling a little bit overwhelming or conflicting, what can the property mentors do to help?
We can get everyone talking to each other. I think that's the main point. Like I said, if your whole team's talking to each other and they're all very clear on what the end goal is, right, you're going to have a better result. Like Luke's obviously built a property portfolio. Both me and Malika, we've got property, right? So we've gone through this stuff ourselves. We've spoken to conveyancers, we've spoken to brokers, we've actually experienced it. If you do want to use your own broker and you want to use our services, we highly recommend that you introduce us to the broker and make it crystal clear, and the same for conveyancer and accountant if the accountant has got something to say about property. So if you're buying in your SMSF and stuff like that, make it crystal clear to them as part of you paying them for their services and giving them their business. You want them to talk to us.
Yeah. The bit behind the scenes, essentially, that our members will never see is the real nitty-gritty work that we're doing for them to make sure that they're achieving what they want to achieve, right? And a lot of that comes with us communicating with your team of professionals.
And that's why this might have seemed like a bit of a heated podcast, if you want to put it like that.
Definitely one of our more heated, but that's okay.
Passionate. But like, we spend quite a bit of time with our members to get to know them on a I don't know if intimate's the right word, but in a very detailed, we know what their family planning is going to be like. We know where they need to work. We know their budgets.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for today's topic. Yes, you're right. It has definitely been one of our more passionate episodes, but it's really clear that you guys really care about your members and you want to see the best success for them. But thank you so much for your time today, Herman and Malika.
Thank you for having us, Phoebe.
Thanks for having me.
If you found this episode or any of our episodes helpful, please make sure to share and leave a rating to help us reach more people on their investing journeys. And of course, subscribe to be notified when new episodes drop. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at Investor Intelligence Podcast. You can find links to our other socials in the show notes, including a link to the Property Mentors weekly blog. If you're ready to get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom, check out Luke's latest book, Property Fit. You can get yourself a copy at www.propertyfitbook.com.au.